Okay, good morning everyone. I have not made videos in a while because I've been going through some stuff personally. I don't do well with isolation, and I've been very isolated lately, and that makes my mental health really bad. And so that is the reason why I haven't been posting, for the very few of you who actually care about my channel, which thank you. The topic of the video today, I'm going to touch on narcissism. It's a very big topic because it's what I feel is the main problem in the world, is just, this, and it's a false polarity too, just pointing that out, but there's a polarity between those who are narcissistic and those who are self-sacrificing. And I've come to the conclusion it's the same sort of disease. It's like that, the disease that white people have, that says, let's not reproduce, let's not feel self-confident, let's hate ourselves. It's the same disease that makes the SJWs think that they have the moral high ground. It's the same damn thing. And the point is to get rid of that narcissism on either side, because you don't need to be self-sacrificing to the point of killing the entire society. That's fucking retarded. And the reason why people get there is because you can play off of people's narcissistic tendencies, and people don't even know it. But they don't want to be the bad guy. They don't want to be wrong. They don't want to be bad. And it's something that goes back to childhood, and it's probably everybody, and there's a lot of fucking broken people who are stuck in that childhood position where they haven't had an opportunity to grow up in a safe place, and so they never really grew up, so they're going back to all these childhood tactics that worked on their parents, who themselves may have been a bit narcissistic. And it's the way our society is set up legitimately. Like, we don't keep children in the household anymore to stay with a loving parent who's going to protect and care about them and build a really strong, one of the first relationships you'll ever build with a human being is with your mother or father. And it should be one of the strongest bonds in your entire life. But we sever that. We sever that so early. And we send these children at the age of 4 or 5 to preschool and kindergarten and stuff like that. And then the moms just sort of drop out. They go to work. They don't give a fuck anymore. They liked them when they were babies, maybe. And the kids grow up, latchkey kids, coming home from school, making themselves a snack and sitting down in front of the TV, because what the fuck else are they going to do? That's kind of my childhood. I was very, very loved when I was very, very small, especially in the environment I was in. I had a lot of family out in the Midwest where I grew up, and so I got a lot of attention from a lot of different people, which I think that's the best place for a small child to be, is just surrounded by family and surrounded by people who want to give them attention, because small children are fucking exhausting. They are. They absolutely are. But they need a hell of a lot of attention, and they need that bond between those 1 or 2 people, and preferably some siblings and other family members who care about them. That just strengthens that sense of love and that they feel in their heart, and it's all a good thing. But we've severed all that. We don't have big extended families anymore. The nuclear family, the left has been trying to destroy for years and years. And then on the other side, you have the crazy, the Christians, or the conservatives, the far extreme conservatives, who are like, no birth control whatsoever, no abortion whatsoever, no nothing whatsoever. You need to have 12 kids. Let's have 12 kids. It's sociopathic. Like, no, don't have 12 kids. We need to be at replacement rate for sure, right? Like, yeah, that'd be good to keep our society going. But do you need to have 12 kids? No, I think that's a bit narcissistic. And I say that because you put a lot of strain on your other children when you do that. It's like you have 3 kids. Okay, a mom can take care of 3 or 4 rambunctious kids, maybe 5. Okay, I wouldn't put it past a decent woman to have a handle on 5 children, even rambunctious children. You get past that, it gets really hard, and then you start calling on the other kids to start helping you. And if those kids have emotional issues of their own, like, it's just not fair to them to put the burden of parenting on them because you had too many kids and you can't fucking deal with it yourself. It's one thing to have your older sibling babysit you on a Saturday night for some extra cash. It's a completely different thing to make your children take on parenting roles as a result of your poor parenting planning and things like that. So that's a bit of a sidetrack, but that's some narcissism on the conservative side. And people just don't think about other people. It's really sad. And what ends up happening is we isolate ourselves from other people with the narratives we tell us in our own minds about what other people think about us. And it can get really, really bad, and people can go really psychotic. My fiance, he was with a narcissist, like a pathological narcissist. We all have narcissistic tendencies, and especially those of us who did not grow up in positive situations, which there are a lot of people out there. I definitely did not have it the worst. I did have a very narcissistic sister who teased me a lot. And when you only have one sibling, especially when they're the older sibling, that can do a lot of damage. And so you have a lot of people who don't know how to deal with their emotions. And so, like, this girl my fiance had been with, she was insane. She was stupid, which did not help. And so she couldn't reason out of the narcissism, right? But she was completely illogical. Everything she did failed because she wouldn't listen to anybody else because she had her own thoughts and she knew she was right, and that's just the way it was. And so you have somebody come along and they go, that doesn't sound like a really great idea, and the explosion would just be, you're stupid, go fuck yourself, like. And then 2 months later she would feel the consequences of her actions because she didn't listen. And that's a big problem with narcissists. They don't want to listen. They want to have their own narratives and their own thoughts, and it gets really, really delusional to the point where you can take a small child, leave them in a hot car, and delude yourself about whether or not they were in danger of heat stroke. Like, everybody fucking knows you don't leave a small child in a hot car, okay? Like, there's things you just don't fucking do. You have to be at least narcissistic enough, or non-narcissistic enough, to think about another person enough to pull a small child who cannot do that for themselves out of a hot car that will kill them in a matter of minutes. So, I'm watching a video today, and it's about how snow is apparently racist. I'm not sure if it was like a veiled metaphor for white people or not, but like, this bitch was like legitimately like, probably get yelled at if I use the actual N-word, but she was using, the N-word with the A at the end quite a lot in that article. And it's like, oh, okay, so snow is racist because you don't like being cold. Put on a fucking jacket. I'm sorry, I have to put on a jacket. I don't do well in the cold. I don't like the cold. Why do you think that Snow is somehow racist against black people? And okay, I'm gonna read to you the legitimate quote from the article. Okay, and this I assume it's a woman talking. Aside from your boogie-ass Kappa cousins taking ski trips and sleigh riding on ascots, we, collectively, let cold weather rock. If cold weather is walking down our side of the street, we cross the street. We're even nice enough to stay in the house for months while the cold weather's out getting its groove on. Yet, despite all these concessions that we've made, cold weather still hates us. And the word for that type of undeserved hate of black people is racism. So yes, cold weather is racist. Yeah. I did just read that. That's a real article. I'm not making it up. And it's just the perfect clear sign of, this sort of me mentality of narcissism. I'm really hoping that article is a joke, because it would be it's a really funny article if it's a joke. If it's a real article, it's really a sad statement about the state of the world. And the fact is that I can't tell the difference between the two. I can't tell if it's a joke or not, because these people have gotten so insanely crazy. Stories of people with pathological narcissism will sit there and they'll berate an unconscious body on the floor for not doing enough for them because it's all about them. What does it say about you if you think that weather, something that isn't controlled by people at all, in any way, shape, or form, weather, and just weather being cold, that's racist? Go back to fucking Africa where it's hot if you think that cold weather is racist. I'm sorry, but what other alternative do we have at this point? You're not happy here, leave. I'm sorry. And of course they'll never leave because America's awesome. Okay, we've got running water, we've got electricity, we've got the internet, we've got an endless amount of food here. People are fat up the fucking yin-yang here. And so it's we live in the land of milk and honey and plenty. You really want to fucking leave and go back to the dark country? No, you don't want to go to the shitholes. You don't want to go to the places where the native populations take over white farms and then their native population starves because they don't know how to perform the white farming techniques. Even if the white people stay and try to help them and teach them how to farm, it doesn't work. You don't want to go back there. So stop complaining about the goddamn fucking weather. Why are people so focused on themselves? I'm guilty of it just as anyone else is. We all sin and fall short of the glory of the Lord. We cannot become one with God unless we get rid of all these narcissistic tendencies. And the fact is that if you want to do that, you have to be others-oriented. You have to be in service to others. And, the weird thing is that when you stop focusing on yourself, you get about 10 billion times happier. When you take on responsibility that puts you in debt to somebody else, it makes your life have more meaning. But you have to choose these things for yourselves. It's spiritually corrupting if you are forced into those situations, right? My fiance has to pay off all this debt that his narcissistic ex racked up on his credit cards. And he feels like a goddamn slave. And I can understand it. I don't like the fact that he has to work so damn much and is always tired. It sucks. It sucks so much. And it would be so much better, if we lived in a society where he could actually get some sort of retribution against her and maybe get some of that debt forgiven. But he can't do that because there's no way to prove that she used it without his permission. Like, it's just a really shitty situation for him. And that sort of thing, though, is really corrupting to the soul. You know, it puts all this pain and it drives these fissures into your heart where unity and love should be, right? Because we should feel connected to other people. We should want to spend time with other people. We put up barriers and walls because it's a defense mechanism. The only thing I can think is the world is filled with so much pain and suffering that we put up these narcissistic boundaries because it's the only way we know how to protect ourselves from other people. And so there are a vast, vast number of people who are very, very, very isolated from other people. And the reason is because they self-isolate. They pull themselves away from other people. They don't tell the truth. And so they're afraid that when people find out who they really are, they're going to be abandoned like they have been every other time. And it sucks. And that's the type of pain that breeds narcissism. And it's the type of pain that, you know, I think happens in our broken society just over and over again. Boys are constantly being told they're bad, so don't be a boy. So now we have tons of transgendered and gay men all over the place, and it's all in an effort to feel love. Okay? Like, that's the main thing. People want to feel loved, they want to feel valued, and they want to feel connection with something. The problem is that with so many single mothers and so many broken homes, religious influences that are negative, there's a lot of controlling religious influences in our society. And then on top of that, Marxism is an incredibly narcissistic ideology, more so than Christianity. Christianity, at least like, when you go to the surface level of Christianity, right, like, there is this level of Christianity which is, okay, serve others. And while that can fall into that, you know, sort of narcissistic, like, landscape of, and I can explain that in a second, but it falls into that, but it's in a more productive way. That's why Western society has done so well. We've redirected that narcissistic guilt towards something productive. But the real goal is to get rid of the guilt altogether. Because you cannot get rid of the narcissism without getting rid of the guilt altogether. And you go a little deeper in Christianity, and I think this is the point of Christ's sacrifice, right? You put your sin, or the things that you do wrong, right? Like, because sin is not, you went out and did something malicious. That's one thing. Sin is literally missing the mark. So if you put every time that you miss the mark on Christ, although that guilt, that pain that you feel from the things that you just don't do quite right, and the things that eat at you, if you go, nope, that belongs to Christ, that belongs to Christ, that belongs to Christ, you can get rid of your guilt. It's one method, at least. I don't think it's the best method, because I think the best method would actually be to understand where your guilt comes from. And a lot of times it doesn't come from you. My fiance has felt guilty for a very, very long time over the death of his father. And I've listened to this story a number of times, and I go, there's no way in hell you're responsible for that. That's the decision of a grown man and a grown woman who cheated on him. That's not anything to do with a small child who should have been loved and protected during that time period. And instead, he wasn't. And it led to really bad things for him. And it's all because his mother and father were so self-absorbed. You know, the father, I blame his father because his father chose the easy way out, in my perspective. And I see Mike here, my fiance, struggling to do the right thing by his own child. Because he knows what happens when the father isn't there to fight for and protect the child. And so it's why I think, suicide's one of those really narcissistic moves to make. It's because you don't want to reach out to other people and have that connection that's going to make you better. Because you can get better. You just have to reach out to the right people. And it's really hard to find those people nowadays. And I'm so blessed that I did find those people. Because I found a really great community in the people that I work with. Something that it has stuck with me over the last couple weeks is I came to my manager and I told him that I was struggling mentally and that being isolated was not good for me because I have a tendency to self-harm. And he had this absolute look of compassion on his face. And he was just like, I am so sorry. I would have never put you in there if I had known. And it was legitimately just a moment where I was just like, this is the best place I could possibly be in my life right now. Because the people here care about me. If I come into the break room and I'm looking like a mess and my face is all red and someone's going to ask me what the hell is wrong, when I have anxiety and I run off and I've been kind of rude to somebody, like, a lot of times they go, girl, what was wrong yesterday? You seem so upset. It's like, oh, thank God, these people don't hate me. And it's just, you have to open yourself up to that sort of love to allow that into your life. And you have to make connections with people. And you have to actually seek those connections out. And you have to be willing to destroy the shell or the walls that you've built up around you and just go and just tell the truth. Because once you tell the truth, all that pain, that guilt, that suffering, released. And you can let it go at some point, right? You just say, I'm having a hard time. I'm hurting myself right now. And someone goes, I had no idea. And you can start to feel the compassion around you. And you don't have to be alone. And you don't have to care about yourself so much because it's no longer about your needs getting met because you finally found that connection. But you have to open yourself up to that connection to begin with. You can't isolate yourself, live in a delusional fantasy world where you think that the snow is literally racist against you. Let me just say that again. She thought the snow was racist against black people. We've reached peak insanity here. And it's all because people are too self-oriented. It really is. And briefly before in my video, I will explain the other side of the narcissism, which is the self-sacrificing side. I don't think it does any good to society to be completely self-sacrificing. I think we need to be made up of individuals who are balanced, who can simultaneously take care of themselves and other people. Because you don't want to live in a society where you have open borders, right? Like, you want to have your own territory, you want to have your own castle, your own household, but you don't want your neighbors to starve down the street. And you don't want your brother to have to sleep on the side of the road. So when your neighbors need help, you go down and help them. When your brother needs a place to stay, you let them sleep on the couch. But what you don't do is you don't buy into the guilt of somebody else who says, I don't have a house. You should give me your house. You have 2 houses. Give me both of them. Or the guilt of, you're white. You did bad things in the past, or your ancestors did bad things in the past, so give us your money. It's self-destructive. And it's self-destructive to the other person. It doesn't help them at all. They need to work and get the things that they need on their own, right? If they want to come to you for help and say, hey, I see you were a successful person. How have you been successful in your life, and can you show me how to be successful? I would say take the least narcissistic route, which would be to go, yeah, I can help you. And the reason why the complete self-sacrifice thing is a narcissistic sort of thing is because you're not Jesus Christ. You're not the savior of the universe. You're not the savior of the planet. You could be. But you shouldn't act as if you are unless you're legitimately put in that situation. It's like you personally, in your everyday life, need to act with love, compassion, and tolerance, and be willing to give somebody the shirt off your back if the situation were to call for it. But you also need to protect and take care of yourself in a way that allows you to be non-narcissistic, because I'm convinced that balance is the only way. People who are nothing but self-sacrificing, they're very me-oriented. I don't know if you've ever heard one of those people talk, but they have so much pushing down on them that they can't think of anything else but their own pain and suffering. And I see these tendencies even with my own fiance, who, it's frustrating for me, but at the same time I understand it, because he is so exhausted and stressed out all the time. But it's always, oh, I'm so sorry, I'm so tired. I'm. When you say a lot of I'm words, I words, think about how many times you say the word I in a day. And it's about how he feels bad about him not being home for me. Which, it makes me feel crappy too that he's not here, but he comes home and he puts that on me immediately. Because he's been thinking about it. Because his suffering and his pain makes him me-oriented, which is understandable. When you're suffering, when you're in pain, you should be me-oriented. When you touch a hot stove, you should move your hand away. That's okay. Yay, do that. You should be me-oriented in the moment. When you're in a really bad situation, and your body is telling you to get the fuck out, it's okay to be me-oriented in those situations, right? Like, if you're in immediate danger, it's okay to be me-oriented in that situation. Me-oriented is a really positive tool, but it's a tool. Living our lives in a me-oriented fashion, it sucks. It really sucks. It puts you down into the pits of hell, essentially. And it causes other people to fall into the pits of hell. And hell, in my mind, is a place you create in your own mind. It's a place of suffering and pain and sorrow. And it's a place you can avoid if you try. You know? But you have to try. And you have to care about other people in order to make it work. And the thing is that when you start focusing on other people, your problems start to sort of go away. And then when you do have a problem, you find that there's people around you to help you with those problems. Just something to think about, I suppose. Have a great day, everyone.